Hello there, my name is Bella and welcome back to the 100 Acre Wool Knitting Podcast. This is a podcast where I like to share with you what I've been making and knitting on recently. So I'm very excited about today's episode. Today is going to be all about knitting, and I have a finished object to share with you, some works in progress, and then also some fun acquisitions at the end that I picked up on a recent trip that I went on. So grab a cup of something. I am drinking on some iced tea today, some iced jasmine green tea. Grab a cup of something, get comfy, get something to knit on, and let's get started. So I hope you've been having a lovely Mother's Day. I'm thinking that this video is going to be published on Mother's Day. If it's late, then I hope you had a lovely Mother's Day. I don't live with my mom or near my mom anymore, so I will just be calling her and saying hi. But if you have a chance to hang with your mother, I hope you have a good day. So let's get into the knitting. First, we'll talk about the finished object for this week. It's been a little while since I've been able to podcast. Oh, actually, before I get into this, some quick updates before we get started, so I don't forget. So, for the returning viewers here, if you don't already know, my Instagram got hacked a little while ago. I think it was a little over a week ago by now. Thankfully, I have it back already. Hooray! But if you didn't know, that's what happened. If you had seen some weird posts from me or gotten some weird messages, that's what happened, but it's all solved now. Don't pay attention to any of that and don't fall for any scams, but we're all good now on that front. So yes, if you would like to follow me on Instagram, I do have an Instagram again. So it's at 100 Acre Wool, the same name as this channel. And then I'm also on Ravelry at 100 Acre Wool. So you can find me on those places as well. And then a very exciting announcement that has been coming and coming for months and months. Lina magazine issue 14 was published this past Friday. So you can go pick up that magazine now if you're not aware of what Lina magazine is. They're just a knitting publisher. They publish a lot of magazines and books with beautiful knitting patterns by many different designers. And I'm very excited to say that for issue 14, I am one of the designers being featured. So I have a pattern in there called Kusli, and I will put a picture of it here because I do not have the sample with me. Lina still has it in Finland. So yes, this cardigan is featured in that publication in Lina 14. So you can go pick it up now, and it's very exciting. I haven't actually received my copy in the mail quite yet, but I'm very excited to receive it. And there's some other knitting patterns in that one, in this magazine, that I actually really do want to knit. I think they're very beautiful. So yeah, that'll probably be some new cast-ons on my needles very soon. It's their summer issue, so a lot of really great summer appropriate patterns coming up. So those are the two announcements, and now we can get into the knitting. So first I have to share with you a finished object. So these are a pair of socks that I knit for my partner Austin. He had actually picked up this yarn. We picked up the yarn together at a knitting event pre-COVID times, pre-pandemic. And he was actually, I had taught him how to knit in the past, and he was actually going to make socks himself. He was going to knit these himself, is what the plan was. But since then, I don't know, he didn't want to deal with having to figure out how to knit socks, because he knows the knit and the purl stitch, but anyways, one way or another, he didn't want to knit these, at least yet. He didn't want to make socks, at least at this point. So I knit them for him. But he designed them, so they're vanilla socks, pretty much, but he did add some nice details in the design that I thought were cool. So they were knit top down, and one of the details is these buttons, which I think are so beautiful. He also picked these buttons up at the knitting festival that we went to. There was one of the vendors there was selling a lot of vintage buttons, and he found some really cool ones, kind of medieval inspired. So I'll just hold these up for you so you can see. So there's one, maybe, yeah, maybe hopefully you can see the details on that one. And all 4 of them are different, so they're all in the kind of top cuffs here. And then on this sock, there's one side and the other side. So I think these buttons were really cool. I think he did a great job picking them out. So yes, they were knit top down. So these buttons are kind of holding the cuffs down right now. So if I unbutton it, I put in some buttonholes so that they could actually, the buttons could function as buttons. But yeah, so now I'm folding it up. So this is the true length of the sock. So just quite a bit of ribbing. He wanted quite a bit of ribbing. And I'm calling them boot socks just because of the way that he has them folded down and everything. I just think they kind of look like old military boots or something like that. I think they're really cool. And if the heel is looking kind of worn, it's because they are kind of worn already. Austin's been wearing these already quite a bit, and he already loves them. So I'm very happy about that. But yeah, so they were knit top down, a normal flap and gusset heel. So if you know that construction, it's quite simple, just like a normal vanilla sock. And then he also has high arches, which is one of the reasons that I chose this type of a construction. I've done the kind before where you do, I guess they would be short rows or wraps and turns. Instead of like a gusset heel, you do wraps and turns. And that kind of a sock doesn't really leave much leeway for high arches if someone has high arches. So I made those for him in the past and they didn't really fit him that well. So now we have a version that actually fits his arches perfectly. So these pretty much fit him like a glove. Kind of a funny saying. Fit you like a glove, but they're socks. Yeah, and then the toe is like a normal toe, just did a simple Kitchener stitch at the bottom here. So yeah, those were a really fun project to work on. Very easy if you've done socks before, vanilla socks, just very mindless in the round. I knit these on my 9-inch circulars. I think I used a US size 1.5, I believe. So quite small needles, and this is DK weight yarn, so it's also quite a tight gauge. But yes, I really enjoyed the knitting process. It was a great bedtime, like getting ready for bed kind of knitting project that, you know, you don't want to work on something super complicated, but you want to do something. I usually like to have a nice, easy knitting project just to kind of fall asleep with. So that's what these were for me. And he really likes them, so I am very happy about that. And yes, he's already gotten a lot of wear on these. So if you hadn't heard me talk about these before, the yarn that I used, again, is DK weight yarn. I will be inserting the dyer's name here. It's hand-dyed yarn, and I'm forgetting the dyer's name right now. I think it's I don't know. I'm gonna put it here. But the colorway I know is called Fall Madness, and I remember that because I thought it was such a fitting and fun colorway name. Yeah, the way that it looked in the skein, maybe I'll also insert a picture of what the skein used to look like, because it's just so different from how it knits up. And I think Austin, when he was picking out the yarn, he's not an experienced knitter, so I think he didn't realize like how the colors were going to actually play together. So that was kind of a fun surprise for him, that the colors turned out to look very, you know, kind of stripy. It almost looks like it's self-striping yarn. So yeah, yeah, that was a very fun project. I will actually be putting up a free pattern of these if you would like to knit them. I'm not going to be sizing them or anything like that, but if you would just like to know like the stitch counts that I used and like the measurements of things for like a men's size high arch sock, also like how I did the buttonholes and everything, I'll be making a pattern for that, which will be up very soon. Follow me on Instagram for when I will actually be posting that. I'll let you guys know on Instagram. So the next work in progress, that's the only finished object for this week. The next work in progress is something that I showed you guys last time in my last podcast. I showed you a swatch of it, or for it, and I've actually cast it on now, and I'm very excited about it. So this is a new pattern that I'm working on, and here we go. So I'm calling this pattern Fields of Gold because, as you may see in the center here, these are little grass motifs, like wheatgrass motifs. So I'm very excited about this pattern. I live in California, Southern California, and we have a lot of wheatgrass, wild wheatgrass, just growing everywhere. And towards around this kind of time of year, and then also more towards summer and early summer, it starts dying back. The wheatgrass starts dying back, and it gets this really beautiful golden color, and it's exactly the color of this yarn. So when I saw this yarn, this is Nutiden yarn, and when I saw this yarn in their March update, I just had to pick it up and had to use it for this pattern. I'd had this idea before in my brain, but just had to find the right yarn for it, and here we go. So it is a field of gold. So let me show it up close up so you can see all the details. So you may see the center little grass right now here. It's not finished yet, and that's because the little loopies that we use to, I'm not going to explain how the pattern works, but yeah, it's not finished yet, so don't mind it kind of looking strange right now in the center one, but the right and the left one are finished. So that's the full grass motif. And then we have some more stitches on the sides of the neckline. Right here is some, I think it's called the grass stitch actually, so I thought that that was fitting to include. And then the details continue on the back. So this is the back portion here. So it's going to be the same kind of V motif. I don't actually know what this stitch pattern is called, but it's going to be continued all the way down there as well. Let's see, will it focus? It's trying to focus on me. There we go. So yeah, just having a lot of fun with playing with textures, and it's just so soft. Oh, I love Nutiden so much. It's very, very airy and light, so I think that also plays well with the grass kind of theme going on here, that it's very light and airy and flowy. Yeah, so I'm just having so much fun with this so far. It's worked top down, and it's kind of an odd construction, I think. I've never actually seen a construction, like, from everything that I've knit so far in my knitting journey. I've never experienced something with this kind of a construction, so it's kind of strange, but it is knit top down in the round, well, flat until you get to this point of the neckline, and then from here down it's knit in the round, and it's seamless. So yeah, I have split for the, or rather I've joined the body, so we have the armhole ready to go, and yeah, I'm just working away on it, and it's at a point now that it's very kind of not mindless, because I do have to follow a chart, but it is very fun to work on, and there are like quite a bit, there is quite a bit of stockinette, like easy stockinette in the round that your mind can take a break on, but then like every round there's something to do at one point, which I like those kinds of patterns that have you do something every once in a while, that it's not always go, 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 and it's not always mindless. Except like those socks, I do always want something mindless as well, so it just depends on the mood. But anyways, if you're looking for something that would have some details sometimes, then this would be perfect. Yeah, and the neckline was something that I also was having a lot of fun with, kind of coming up with the idea of like how I wanted the neckline to look. So it's kind of it's a very subtle V-neck, and it does give quite a bit of showing the décolleté up here. Obviously I can't try it on right now. I will try it on for you guys maybe next time, we'll see. But yes, I am happy with how the neckline came out. So yes, if you couldn't tell, it is a raglan style sleeve, which I really like raglan style construction, and I thought for this pattern it would be quite beautiful to have that sort of a construction. And yes, like I said, I am using Nutiden yarn for this pattern, and the colorway is called Hufta, which this is what the colorway looks like up close. I just think Nutiden is so beautiful, especially this colorway. It's kind of a golden gray, very beautiful, I think. So I'm holding it double throughout the entire thing. So I just like to wind up these balls so that I don't break the yarn. If you're familiar with how Nutiden works, you probably do this yourself as well. But Nutiden is an unspun yarn, so it is quite delicate. The finished product of what you're knitting is not going to be delicate because of, like, the stitches are small enough that the fiber length is not going to just draft on you. Like, once it's already knit up, it's perfectly stable. But at this point, when it's still in the yarn stage, it can be kind of fiddly. So what I like to do is I just unwind a bit from the cake. I just pull on two cakes. So I'll just put these on the ground and pull them both together, one strand of each, and then I just wind them into these little balls so that when you're knitting with it, it can freely flow. I can't actually find the end of this one. Here we go. So, you know, a ball will freely roll once you're knitting with it. So I don't have any problem when I do this. I don't have any problem with it breaking on me or with it drafting. Yeah, I think this is a good method if you have struggled with Nutiden or if you want to use Nutiden in the future, and I would definitely recommend winding it up this way. Especially also if you're going to be knitting it like single strand. This is 2 strands, so 2 strands, holding a double, it does help it keep more sturdy, stay more sturdy, and especially if you were knitting it single-stranded, it can be kind of delicate, so I would recommend balling it up like this. So yes, this has been a very fun one to work on. It's just flying off the needles because I'm just having so much fun with it, and seeing the motif grow and, you know, come alive it's just really fun to see, and I just can't put it down when I'm working on it. So I have started on the pattern writing for this, obviously. I will be publishing this as a pattern. Yeah, I've started on the pattern writing portion and trying to figure out how I'm going to grade it. Since I don't know, I think the top of it is kind of unusual, and I don't know, it's not obvious to me how I should grade it. So I'm trying to see, like, looking at measurements and trying to figure out the best way. But I know that everyone is different, even though I will be making it size inclusive, and, you know, we do as much as we can as knitwear designers. Everyone is still different. So I will be including little notes and little tips throughout the pattern of how to make it your own or how to make adjustments. So, like, if you would like to make one portion wider or longer, you know, whatever it may be, I'll be trying to add those in so that everyone can make it to their liking and to their measurements. Yeah, so having a lot of fun with that one. I'm very excited to see it progress. So next, another work in progress is another Nutiden project. Oh my gosh, I hope you guys aren't getting bored of me talking about Nutiden. And let me tell you, I ordered more Nutiden already. Oh gosh. Anyways, I've just fallen in love. I'm not gonna even call it a problem because I think it's a good thing. Anyways, have another Nutiden project on the needles. So this is a Testknit. Can you tell what it is? It's a little bag. So I'm gonna be using this as a project bag most likely. But this is a Testknit for Vanessa Pelisa, I think is how you say her name. She is a mostly Nutiden designer, I believe. She seems to knit a lot of things in Nutiden also, and design a lot of things in Nutiden. But I saw her post about this on her Instagram stories, calling for a Testknit, and I just thought it was so cute. Such a great way to use, like, if you have only a little bit of Nutiden, such a great little project to have on the needles. And I just thought the stitch pattern was so beautiful as well. So this project is called her Boqueria basket. I think that's how you say it, Boqueria. Excuse me if I'm wrong on that. But yes, so it uses a very little amount of Nutiden yarn. There's 2 different sizes, I believe, in the pattern, but this one that I'm knitting is supposed to take about 100 grams. So if you have 1 plate of Nutiden, you can make this. So I thought it would be great for like if you have extras for a sweater or anything like that, because you know we have to buy more Nutiden than we need. So yes, thought it was a really great project. And it's funny, I've been joking that it is its own project bag because I'm putting my yarn, storing my yarn in the project itself. So I thought that was kind of funny. So let me show you the details of the stitch. I think it is just so beautiful. So the main portion of it is a half linen stitch. This portion is called half linen stitch. And then the base, which you knit first, the base is just a linen stitch. So I think both of them are so cute, so beautiful. It actually does quite look like linen, I think, especially in this colorway. So I'm using 2 colorways actually for this one. I'm holding Nutiden double for it, and I'm using 2 colorways. So I am holding Versen and Snow together. So Snow and Versen. So I took 1 strand of this, 1 strand of this, and wound it up into balls that way. So you can see it kind of has a slight pinkish to it. I didn't want to use all Versen and I didn't want to use all Snow. I just wanted a little tiny hint of pink. So maybe you can see in these ones, perhaps you can see the slight amount of pink to it. But it was actually inspired by some local roses near me. There's a huge area of just these gorgeous, gorgeous roses that look exactly like this, mostly white with just a little flush of pink to them. So I thought they were just so beautiful. And I have a little funny story about this project. So I cast this on a few weeks ago, and I think it was 2 weekends ago now. Me and a couple of my friends, we drove up to Oceano, which is a little bit south of San Luis Obispo, if you're familiar with California. And we were there for the weekend a couple of weekends ago. And one of the days we were hanging out at the beach, and I brought my knitting, of course, beach knitting. Who doesn't do that? And it was funny because I was knitting on this, and Nutiden is so light and airy. I hadn't noticed while I was knitting that my working ball of yarn, the wind just took it, and it was like unraveling and just flowing in the wind and like flying away. And I didn't even realize it until it was like 200 yards down the beach. And people were like, what? People were so confused. Where is this coming from? So that was a little funny thing that happened. And I was actually quite surprised. No sand got on it. Like when I was going to pick it up and wind it back up, when I was like going to retrieve the yarn, there was no sand on it. And I was very surprised by that. So there may be a new pattern coming, kind of based around that. Who knows? Yeah, so that was fun to work on. A really great project if you want something kind of mindless but has a nice detail to it, a nice stitch pattern. This stitch pattern is very easily memorizable very quickly, and you can just, again, this is my new bedtime project, so just an easy thing to knit on when you want to knit on something, but not something super crazy. So yeah, having a lot of fun with this one. I will probably be done with this next week, or this coming week, because I want to start using it as a project bag. I think it's so cute. So yeah, that test knit is going well. And those are my whips for today. So if you would like to see acquisitions, stick around. Or if not, then thank you for being here today, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. So acquisitions. Again, we went to Oceano on a little trip, and whenever I go on trips, I always like to make sure that I visit the local yarn shop, if there is one. And for Oceano, I had actually forgotten to do this beforehand, and we had plans for the weekend. Me and my friends, we had plans, we were going to do other things. But the first night that we got there, we went out to dinner, and it just so happened that the local yarn shop for the area was right next door to where we went to dinner. So I thought that was just meant to be, and it was so funny. We were driving in, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a yarn store, we have to go. So me and all my friends, we went into the yarn store together, and it was fun. So that was called, the yarn store we went to was, I think it's called Let's Knit, and I think they're technically in Arroyo Grande. maybe. But yeah, really cute little yarn shop there, and they had a bunch of hand-dyed yarn and a bunch of different things that were really cool. So I had to pick up some yarn. So I ended up picking up 2 skeins, or I guess a cone and a skein. I have no idea what I'm going to make with these, but they were just calling to me and I had to pick them up. I do think I will knit them together in something. So they are both lace weight. This one is a mohair silk, just your normal mohair silk. It is the color in the buff by Stitch Together is the dyer's name, and I just fell in love with this yarn. Oh my gosh, I think the color is just gorgeous. Let's see if I can get the details there. Just beautiful, like mauve and pinks and oranges and purples, speckles and everything. I just thought it was so cool, so had to pick it up. And I really wanted more than 1 skein of this so that I could actually make, you know, a substantially sized project with it. But this was the only skein they had, so I had to make do. But I got this as well, thinking I will be holding them together. So this is Ito yarn in Kinu, 100% silk, which I was very surprised about. I've never used this yarn before, but I've heard a lot about it, that it's really good. But I was surprised because it's 100% silk, but there's no shine to it whatsoever. So I thought that was pretty funny, but just a really beautiful oatmeal kind of colorway. Yeah, I really like this one. And it seems very summer-like. I don't know, it gives me linen vibes, so I think that'll be good. I think the colorway is called Angora, actually, which is kind of funny, but no, it's 100% silk. So this one I have 464 yards, and this one I have 459 yards. They're both 50 grams. And I was thinking possibly could I make a ranunculus out of it? Oh, I am wearing a ranunculus. I was thinking maybe I could make a ranunculus because if I held them both together it would give me a denser gauge. I think 2 lace weights would make at least a DK weight of yarn, so I don't know. If you have any suggestions of what I should make with these, maybe individually or together, let me know in a comment below. I would love to know your suggestions, but maybe like a love note tee or a ranunculus or something of that nature, so we'll see on that. And then also when we were on the trip, we stopped by a bookstore. My partner Austin, he really loves books. He actually works at a library, and he always likes to go to the bookstore, the local bookstore, whenever we go somewhere. So that's kind of our tradition. We always look for the local bookstore and the local yarn store. So we went to the local bookstore, and it was so cute. It was so lovely. They had their cats just roaming around the shop. It was their home. You could tell. When you went in, it was like the cats were just happy being anywhere, happy rubbing up against your legs, sitting on anybody. It was a really funny time. But of course they had a crafting section in that bookstore. It was a second-hand bookshop, so all of the things were used. So it was at really great prices, and they had some really amazing things there. And I found this book. So this one is a really great reference for pattern designing or knitting your own patterns. I mean, rather knitting your own pieces, making your own garments without a pattern is pretty much what this is. So I haven't had a chance to really look through it, but I was scrolling through it, or not scrolling, oh my goodness. I was flipping through it in the bookstore. And I could see that this would be really helpful for pattern designing and just coming up with the different measurements and ratios that you would need for different parts of a garment. It also has kids sizes, I believe, in this. Yeah, so a really great find. If you would like to look it up, here are the details. So, really great book. So I think that's going to really come in handy for when I continue to design things. And then the last thing that I picked up on our trip is knitting related. I'm not going to pick it up and show you right now because it is huge, but I will be inserting some B-roll in here so you can see it. So I picked up a really beautiful woven basket. I have been wanting a basket like this to be storing yarn, store yarn in and maybe go on picnics with. I just thought it was so beautiful. So this one I found in a vintage antique store in Arroyo Grande. And so the owner of this shop let me know that this basket is actually called a creel. So these are used by fishermen. Apparently, I think you would dip it in the water while you're fishing. You would store the fish in there while you're fishing to kind of keep them alive and keep them in the water while you're moving the boat. And then also there's a little hole in the top where they could either put fish in or take little fish out of. So I thought that was a really cool little story that he shared with me on the history of this basket, and that this basket was in the ocean and being used. I thought that was really cool that it had a life behind it and a story behind it. But I just saw it and I thought it would be a perfect yarn knitting bag, or basket rather, because of the hole in the top. I thought you could store your yarn and then be knitting from it while it's being stored, since it has that perfect little window at the top. So that was really fun, and I have started using it as such, and it's very useful. So I definitely think that was a worthwhile purchase, and I just love woven baskets like this. So I was so happy to find one this beautiful and with this much history. So yes, that was everything that I have to share with you for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did enjoy, please do like this video and subscribe to this channel if you're not already subscribed, so you can see when I post a podcast in the future. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and happy knitting, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.